Ever wonder why your perfectly healthy grandmother got turned away at the gate while younger passengers breezed through? Think airlines only care about tickets and security? Wrong. There's a hidden web of age-based policies and medical requirements that kick in after 60, and they're designed to keep you grounded. I'm about to expose 7 shocking practices airlines use to discriminate against older passengers. Let's go. Main content: the medical certificate trap. You've booked your dream vacation, packed your bags, and arrived at the airport 2 hours early. You're 65, in great health, and ready to fly. But when you reach the gate, the airline agent asks for something you've never heard of: a medical clearance certificate. Think this only happens if you're visibly ill? Think again. Airlines can request medical clearance from passengers based purely on appearance, age, or even the slightest visible sign of frailty. Research from a European airline study found that passengers aged 61 to 70 represent the largest group requiring medical clearance requests, accounting for 13.3% of all cases. That's no coincidence. The airlines won't tell you this, but they have internal age-based protocols that flag passengers over 60 for additional medical scrutiny. Gate agents are trained to look for signs of unfitness in older passengers, from walking with a slight limp to appearing tired after a long journey to the airport. In 2024, a British family was denied boarding because their baby had mild cold symptoms despite having medical clearance from a doctor. If airlines can deny boarding for a baby with sniffles, imagine what they can do to a 65-year-old who looks slightly unsteady on their feet. The kicker? Even with a fit-to-fly certificate from your doctor, airlines can still refuse you. The final decision rests entirely with the airline's medical team, or even the flight captain. Your own physician's professional opinion becomes worthless the moment you step into that airport. Airlines justify this by claiming passenger safety. But industry insiders reveal the real motivation: liability reduction and cost savings. Older passengers statistically require more medical assistance during flights, and airlines want to avoid potential lawsuits and emergency landings that can cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. The insurance industry conspiracy: you think you're covered because you bought travel insurance? Wrong again. Many insurance companies have age limits as low as 70, and they won't even cover passengers beyond that threshold. This creates a double trap. Airlines can deny you boarding for medical reasons, and your insurance won't cover the financial losses from missed flights, hotels, or connecting flights. The travel insurance industry has quietly implemented discriminatory age limits that work hand in hand with airline policies. Companies like All Clear Travel openly admit that age affects coverage, with some insurers refusing coverage entirely for passengers over certain ages. British Airways and other major carriers have specific partnerships with medical clearance companies that profit from this system. When they require you to get medical clearance, you're often directed to expensive private medical services that charge between £20 to £40 for basic certificates. It's a hidden tax on aging. The most shocking part? Industry data shows that 2.3% of medical clearance requests are outright denied, but an additional 1.8% are deemed unnecessary after the fact. That means airlines are forcing thousands of elderly passengers through expensive, humiliating medical evaluations that serve no actual safety purpose. The captain's absolute power. You've jumped through every hoop, got your medical certificate, and made it to your seat. But even then, you're not safe. Federal regulations give flight captains ultimate authority to remove any passenger they deem unfit to fly, and age plays a huge factor in these decisions. The captain doesn't need medical training, doesn't need to consult your doctor, and doesn't even need to provide detailed justification. In practice, this means a 30-something pilot can overrule a 70-year veteran physician's assessment of your health based on nothing more than a gut feeling about your appearance or behavior. The Department of Transportation received 223 discrimination-related complaints in 2023, a 26% increase from the previous year. Age discrimination cases are notoriously difficult to prove because airlines can always claim safety concerns as justification for their decisions. Case studies reveal that older passengers are disproportionately removed from flights for behaviors that would be ignored in younger passengers. Appearing confused about gate changes, walking slowly to the restroom, or asking flight attendants to repeat instructions can all be used as evidence of unfitness to fly. Airlines train their staff to document any behavior that could be construed as concerning in older passengers, building a paper trail to justify post hoc discrimination. Internal airline documents show gate agents are specifically instructed to pay attention to elderly passengers' mobility, cognition, and independence levels. The hidden age algorithms airlines won't admit this exists, but they use sophisticated passenger profiling systems that flag travelers based on age, medical history, and travel patterns. When you book a flight over 60, especially if you're traveling alone or have any medical equipment listed in your reservation, you're automatically entered into a higher risk category. This triggers additional scrutiny from check-in through boarding. The algorithm considers factors like previous medical incidents on flights, age-related statistical risks, and even your destination. Flying to a location with limited medical facilities? The system flags you as higher risk. Booking a long-haul flight over 65? Another red flag. Travel insurance companies share data with airlines about claims and medical incidents, creating a secret blacklist of passengers who've required medical assistance during previous trips. Once you're on this list, every future flight becomes a potential battleground. Industry insiders report that airlines use this data to quietly discourage older passengers from booking certain routes or flights. They'll show higher prices, claim limited availability, or suggest alternative flights with more medical facilities at destinations. The European Union has begun investigating these discriminatory algorithms, but in the United States, airlines operate with virtually no oversight of their passenger profiling systems. The terminal accessibility deception airlines proudly advertise their accessibility services, but they're designed to identify and segregate older passengers rather than genuinely help them. When you request wheelchair assistance or any mobility aid, you're immediately flagged in the airline system as a potential medical risk. What appears to be helpful customer service is actually a data collection system used to build profiles of passengers who might require additional medical attention. Gate agents use these service requests to justify additional questioning about your fitness to fly. The conversation starts friendly, but quickly becomes an informal medical assessment designed to create legal justification for denying boarding. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires airlines to provide assistance, but it also gives them broad latitude to refuse passengers they deem unable to evacuate the aircraft in an emergency. This evacuation standard is subjectively applied and disproportionately used against older passengers. Airlines profit from this system by partnering with medical transport companies that offer expensive alternatives to commercial flights. When they deny you boarding, they conveniently have a list of private medical transport services that cost 10 to 50 times more than your original ticket. TSA screening procedures for passengers over 75 are designed to identify medical issues that can later be used by airlines to justify boarding refusal. The expedited screening process collects data about mobility limitations, medical devices, and assistance needs that's shared with airline security systems. The international travel trap. Think age discrimination is bad on domestic flights? International travel is where airlines really show their true colors. Different countries have varying medical standards for entry, and airlines use this as cover for blanket age-based restrictions. They'll claim foreign regulations require additional medical documentation when it's actually the airline's own policy. The Medical Information Form, MEDIF, used by international airlines requires disclosure of any medical conditions, medications, or recent health changes. For passengers over 60, this form becomes a tool for systematic exclusion rather than genuine medical assessment. Airlines maintain different standards for older passengers on international routes, claiming that remote destinations or limited onboard medical facilities justify additional restrictions. In reality, they're using geographic discrimination to mask age-based policies. Medical evacuation insurance becomes mandatory for older passengers on certain international routes, not because of government requirements, but because airlines demand it as a condition of travel. This can add thousands of dollars to your trip cost and still doesn't guarantee you won't be denied boarding. The most egregious practice involves airlines denying boarding to elderly passengers at foreign airports where they have less legal recourse. Stranded in Shanghai or Mumbai with no legal representation, older passengers often have no choice but to accept expensive medical transport alternatives. The financial extortion system. The hidden costs of flying after 60 go far beyond higher insurance premiums. Medical clearance certificates typically cost 20 to 40 pounds, but airlines often require multiple specialists to sign off on different aspects of your health. A simple vacation can require approvals from your primary physician, cardiologist, and pulmonologist, costing hundreds in medical fees. When airlines deny boarding, they're not required to refund non-refundable tickets for medical reasons. You lose your airfare, hotel reservations, cruise deposits, and any connecting flights. The financial devastation can reach tens of thousands of dollars for elaborate vacation plans. Airlines profit from partnerships with travel insurance companies that exclude coverage for age-related boarding denials. They sell you insurance that won't actually protect you from the most likely reason you'll be denied boarding. The medical transport industry charges premium rates for services that are often unnecessary. A medical escort on a commercial flight can cost $5,000 to $15,000 on top of regular airfare, while private medical transport can reach $50,000 to $100,000 for international flights. Credit card companies and travel booking sites rarely disclose age-based restrictions when selling flights to older passengers. By the time you discover these limitations, you've already invested thousands in non-refundable travel arrangements. Airlines deliberately make the appeals process complex and time-sensitive, knowing that older passengers are less likely to navigate the bureaucratic maze required to challenge discriminatory decisions. The most insidious part of this financial system is how airlines coordinate with hotels, cruise lines, and tour operators to maximize losses when they deny boarding. They know that rejecting an elderly passenger doesn't just cost them one ticket, it destroys an entire vacation worth thousands of dollars in interconnected bookings. Airlines have negotiated special deals with medical evacuation companies where they receive kickbacks for referrals. When they deny you boarding and suggest private medical transport, they're literally profiting from your discrimination twice. Once from denying you service, and again from the commission on expensive alternatives. The Department of Transportation requires airlines to compensate passengers for involuntary bumping due to overbooking, but these protections don't apply to medical-related denials. This loophole allows airlines to use dubious health concerns as a way to remove passengers without paying compensation. The cabin crew training conspiracy flight attendants receive specific training on identifying problematic elderly passengers, and it's not what you think. Airlines train cabin crew to document behavioral patterns in older passengers that can be used to justify removal or future boarding denials. A passenger who takes longer to stow carry-on luggage asks for help reading safety instructions or needs assistance reaching overhead compartments gets marked in their profile for future reference. The training materials explicitly teach flight attendants to look for signs of cognitive decline, mobility issues, or dependence on others. They're instructed to note if elderly passengers appear confused by boarding procedures, struggle with seatbelt operation, or require repeated explanations of safety protocols. Cabin crew are taught to phrase their observations in medical terminology to create legal protection for the airline. Instead of noting that a passenger seemed tired, they're trained to document apparent lethargy and reduced responsiveness, which sounds like a medical concern rather than normal travel fatigue. The most shocking revelation is that airlines use these crew reports to build long-term profiles of elderly passengers. If you've been flagged by cabin crew on previous flights, that information follows you permanently in the airline's reservation system, making future boarding denials more likely. Senior flight attendants revealed that they're pressured to identify elderly passengers who might create liability issues. Airlines offer performance bonuses tied to incident reduction, creating financial incentives for crew members to preemptively identify older passengers as potential problems. The training includes specific scripts for questioning elderly passengers about their medical conditions without appearing discriminatory. Flight attendants learn to frame invasive health questions as routine safety inquiries, gathering medical information that can later be used to justify boarding refusal. Internal documents show that airlines track which flight attendants identify the most at-risk elderly passengers and use this data for promotion decisions. Crew members who flag more older passengers for medical concerns are considered more safety conscious and receive preferential assignments and advancement opportunities. The Airport Medical Staff Network airports maintain networks of medical professionals who work directly with airlines to exclude elderly passengers, and they're not there to help you. Many major airports have on-call medical staff who can be summoned to assess passengers when airlines have concerns about fitness to fly. These aren't independent medical professionals, they're contractors paid by the airlines to provide medical justification for discriminatory decisions. The airport medical staff use standardized assessment protocols specifically designed to find reasons to ground elderly passengers. These assessments focus on worst-case scenarios and potential complications rather than actual current health status. Industry insiders report that airport medical professionals are pressured to err on the side of caution when evaluating elderly passengers, knowing that approving a passenger who later requires medical attention reflects poorly on their professional judgment and future contract renewals with airlines. These medical assessments typically cost $200 to $500 and must be paid by the passenger, regardless of the outcome. If you're cleared to fly, you pay for the privilege of proving your fitness. If you're denied, you pay for the medical opinion that strands you at the airport. The medical staff often lack specialized geriatric training and rely on outdated assumptions about aging and health. A 70-year-old marathon runner might be declared unfit to fly based on age-related protocols that ignore individual fitness levels and medical history. Airport medical facilities are equipped with testing equipment designed to identify problems rather than confirm fitness. Blood pressure monitors calibrated to detect hypertension, mobility tests designed to reveal balance issues, and cognitive assessments that highlight normal age-related changes as concerning symptoms. The most egregious practice involves medical staff coordinating with airline insurance departments to ensure assessments align with liability reduction goals rather than passenger safety. They're essentially paid to find medical reasons to support predetermined decisions to deny boarding. The prescription medication minefield Airlines maintain secret databases of medications that can trigger automatic boarding refusal for passengers over 60, and your doctor doesn't know about them. Common medications prescribed to elderly patients are classified as high risk by airline medical departments, often without scientific justification. Blood pressure medications, diabetes treatments, and even over-the-counter supplements can trigger additional scrutiny or outright boarding denial. The pharmaceutical profiling system cross-references passenger medical information with airline liability assessments. Passengers taking multiple medications are automatically flagged as higher risk, regardless of how well controlled their conditions are or their physician's assessment of fitness to travel. Airlines have negotiated access to prescription drug databases through insurance partnerships, allowing them to screen passengers based on filled prescriptions rather than disclosed medical conditions. This means they know about medications you haven't even told them about. The most shocking discovery is that airlines maintain a blacklist of medication combinations that result in automatic boarding denial. Common combinations like blood thinners and blood pressure medications, or diabetes drugs and heart medications, can disqualify elderly passengers from flying regardless of medical clearance. Pharmacies are required to report certain prescription patterns to insurance companies, and this information flows to airline medical screening systems. Elderly passengers who fill prescriptions for emergency medications like nitroglycerin or rescue inhalers are flagged as high risk even if they've never used these medications. The medication screening system is designed to identify passengers who might require medical attention during flight, but it's applied discriminatorily against older passengers while ignoring similar risks in younger travelers taking the same medications. Airlines profit from this system by directing medication-flagged passengers to expensive medical escort services or private transport options that can cost 20 to 30 times more than commercial flights. International flights have even stricter medication policies, with some airlines requiring passengers over 65 to provide detailed pharmaceutical records and physician approval for each medication, creating additional barriers and costs for elderly travelers. The Destination Discrimination Protocol. Airlines use your destination to justify age-based discrimination, claiming certain locations are too dangerous or remote for elderly passengers. The Destination Risk Assessment System automatically flags elderly passengers traveling to locations with limited medical facilities, high altitudes, extreme climates, or political instability. This geographic profiling disproportionately affects older travelers seeking adventure or visiting family abroad. Airlines maintain internal risk ratings for every destination that factor in medical evacuation costs and logistics. Elderly passengers booking trips to highly rated destinations face additional medical requirements and scrutiny that younger passengers traveling to the same locations don't encounter. The system considers not just your destination, but your entire travel itinerary, including connections and planned activities. Booking a safari, cruise, or adventure tour triggers additional age-related restrictions and medical clearance requirements. Travel insurance companies coordinate with airlines to identify high-risk destination and age combinations, often refusing coverage entirely for elderly passengers visiting certain locations. This creates a catch-22 where airlines require insurance that insurance companies won't provide. The destination profiling extends to domestic travel, with elderly passengers facing additional restrictions when flying to remote areas, high-altitude destinations, or regions with limited medical facilities. A 65-year-old flying to visit grandchildren in rural Montana faces more scrutiny than a 25-year-old flying to the same destination for skiing. Airlines use destination medical evacuation costs to justify denying boarding to elderly passengers, claiming that remote locations make it too expensive to provide adequate medical support. This economic discrimination masquerades as safety policy. The most insidious aspect is how airlines coordinate with destination tourism boards and medical facilities to create mutually profitable systems where elderly travelers are funneled into expensive medical tourism packages instead of regular vacation travel. Some airlines maintain exclusive partnerships with destination medical services, receiving commissions for referring elderly passengers to private medical facilities instead of allowing them to travel independently and use local health care if needed. Conclusion: so there you have it. 7 hidden practices airlines use to discriminate against passengers over 60. From secret medical requirements to algorithmic profiling, the aviation industry has built a systematic web of age-based barriers designed to keep older travelers grounded while extracting maximum profit from their attempts to fly. The industry doesn't want you knowing that age discrimination in air travel is not only legal in many circumstances, but actively encouraged through insurance partnerships and regulatory loopholes. Every time you accept these restrictions as necessary safety measures, you're enabling a system designed to separate you from your money while denying you equal access to air travel. Knowledge is power. Now that you understand how these systems work, you can prepare documentation in advance, know your rights under the Air Carrier Access Act, and challenge discriminatory decisions before they strand you at the airport. The aviation industry hopes you'll accept these restrictions as the inevitable price of aging, but that's exactly the attitude that allows these practices to continue. Your age doesn't make you less worthy of equal treatment, and it's time the airlines were held accountable for these discriminatory practices. What shocked you most about these hidden airline practices? Share your own experiences with age discrimination in air travel in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more exposés of industry secrets they don't want you to discover. We're just getting started on uncovering the hidden costs and restrictions the travel industry places on older passengers.